2 menit.
Hai, Captain.
Hai.
Ini yang nyala mic-ku kan ya?
Stop recording dulu, nanti kita itu terlalu besar.
Kan never mind, kan aku yang
Angela, bukan Angel. Ih, siapa sih?
aku.
Siapa sih kamu tuh nggak tahu aku banget ya?
Emang kenapa kalau Angel? Aku juga kalau berarti doang, aku nggak marah.
Tapi aku nggak pernah tulis gratis.
Yes. Angel and Angel is the same, dude.
Enggak.
Dulu.
Like JJ with JJ this and JFJA is the same.
No, it's not the same.
It's not the same as it was.
Nanti kan
the
aku
same
apa
was.
nih? Sekarang
There
gini,
is
terus kamu gini.
Yeah, it's not the same as.
For this task, we first have to test all the requirements, like what are the variables, run the cross-sub test, and etc. After some turn of code, we run the normality. Turns out the normality test is failed, so we proceed to do the fitment test. As you can see here, based on the hypothesis test summary, there's a statistically significant difference between frequency, income, and spending. After that, we can go to the three-way conversion test. Based on the previous conversion test, we can confirm that this data was statistically significantly different between spending frequency and spending income with p-value 0.000. So we reject the null hypothesis and conclude that there's a difference between data among smoker are willing to sign in a week. The amount of cigarette tax
Ini kan latihan tuh.
and
Oh, okay.
latihan juga.
I thought.
If it's not latihan, then she'll be pissed from the moment we open our mouth. Ini kan belum recording.
Kamu udah aku ya kapan harus next.
Good morning, guys.
Halo. Oke, pertama kita halo.
Mau opening pertama ini.
Kita semua aja. Kayak hai, terus kamu bilang, so we are going
Bahas skripku gitu ya, bukan?
Yes, paling gede.
Di Word nggak bisa.
Udah sini lihat sini nih.
Oh,
Aku
itu pakai title.
Ini udah pakai title.
Oh iya, udah pakai title. Oh shit.
Lihat sini. Nih.
Oh iya, oke. Boleh dari sini boleh.
Kamu yang first ya. Iya, buka dulu.
Bentar. Oh iya, aku buka.
3, 2, 1. Hi.
So today we're going to present about our research about cigarettes brand consumerism among Gen Z. So why we're going to research for this topic? Because cigarettes users are increasingly consuming through the year. This consumerism became a problem because based on cigarette sales data, it shows that cigarettes are currently the second highest expenditure, surpassing spending on nutritious food. Based on a questionnaire, we collect 78 data, but 27 extreme data were eliminated and left us with only 50 years later. So there are three questions that we will answer through this research. The first one is, does the brand of cigarette differ among genders? Does income affect the willingness to spend and the amount of pack they consume per week? And the last one is, there any difference between the means of data among smokers are willing to spend in a week, the amount of cigarette packs they consume per week, and the smokers' income per week? So the first question, alternative hypothesis, if there's a difference in the brand of cigarette among genders, and the null hypothesis is there are no difference in the brand of cigarettes among genders. The second hypothesis alternative is income affect the willingness to spend and the amount of pack they consume per week. And the null hypothesis is income doesn't affect the willingness to spend and the amount of pack they consume per week. The last question, hypothesis alternative, if there's a difference between the means of the data among smokers are willing to spend in a week, the amount of cigarette packs they consume per week, and the smaller income per week. The null hypothesis is there is a difference between the means of the data among smokers are willing to spend in a week, the amount of cigarette packs they consume per week, and the smoker's income per week. So Based on our data, we conclude 3 statistically test choices. The first one is chi-square test sample. The second one is regression moderation, and the third one is the treatment test.
So we have run some tests to get answers for the question above, and for the question, does the brand of cigarette differ among genders? We figure it out using chi-square test. The reason is because we have two nominal data of cigarette brand names and type of gender. These two variables are independent variables that do not depend on each other.
Yeah.
So we do not use the McNamara test. We also did not use the Fisher exact test because the count value is higher than 5. We figure out from the cross tabulation data that there are count values that are more than 5. Thus we use chi-square test and not Fisher exact test. And then from the bar chart, we can see that there is no difference between brands of cigarettes towards gender. We can see that mostly men buy Surya, while women mostly buy Sampurna. And also it is clear that Surya is the least favorite cigarette among the women, while Camel is the least favorite among the men.
Oke, tolong buka punya aku dong. Oh, dari kamu.
Oh, really?
Ya.
Okay. Oke, nanti aku scroll gini bisa. Anytime. Yeah, anytime you're ready.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, so the second test is to determine, does income affect the willingness to spend and the amount of packs that they consume per week? In this test, we will be using the regression model with a moderator. So in the second test, we wanted to determine whether the income of cigarettes consumers affects their, So in the second test, we are going to determine whether di bawah sayang.
Hah?
Bawah banget, atas banget.
Oh, ke dari sini?
Ya sayang. Okay, so in the second test, we are going to determine whether the income of cigarette consumers affect their willingness to spend per week and the amount of pack that they consume per week. To test this, we use a regression model with the income data being a moderator towards the relationship between the willingness to spend per week and the amount of packs consumed per week. Due to all three data being a scale data, we proceed the data using a moderation in regression model. So we can see from the first part of this screen that we have a box plot, and through this box plot we can see that there is no significant outliers. So first assumptions fulfilled. Second assumptions is that there is a linear relationship between dependent and independent variables, and we can see that with a line that goes from the bottom right, the bottom left, from the bottom left to the bottom right, from the bottom left to the upper right. The third assumption is to determine the independence of observations. So the result from this Durbin-Watson shows that a positive autocorrelation with a value that's over 0 and less than 2. But by looking at the DW table and by having an information of data that we collect, terlalu lama ya?
Iya sih.
Ulang lah ya.
Yeah, well.
Iya. Aku punya berapa menit? 1.
Yes.
Ulang deh.
I don't think you should include.
Oh ya, let's lanjut.
Langsung di on the second data we result. Sorry.
Bilang mulai dong.
Anytime you want.
Okay, so from the second data, we are going to try to find out, does income affect the willingness to spend and the amount of packs that they consume per week? And in this data, we need to fulfill 6 assumptions. Firstly, we fulfill that there's no significant outliers. Secondly, there's a linear relationship between dependent and independent variables. Thirdly, there is an independence of observation. Fourthly, we see that there is a problem in autocorrelation. Fourthly, that because our data is 50 respondents, we look at the Kolmogorov-Smirnov normality, and the result shows that the regression is not normally distributed. Then fifthly, the data shows homoscedasticity, and the residuals of the regression lines are normally distributed. Sixthly, by looking at the VIF, the variance inflation factor less than 10 and the tolerance over than 0.1 means that there is no multi-correlations problem. And then by those assumptions, we can look now. Okay, cut ya. And the last assumption is that the correlation between absolute value of the residual and frequency smokers is significant, and that there is evidence of heteroscedasticity. Now we can look at the result of this test. Firstly, we look at the model summary. With R value of 0.621, we have a positive relation and a medium relationship between the R value with R value of 0.621, we have a positive relationship. And from this number also, we can conclude that it is a medium relationship because the R value is less than 7. And when we look at the R square value, which is 0.386, then the independent variables explain 38.6% of the dependent variables, and then the rest are explained by the other variables. Then we look at the coefficient table, and that we can conclude the amount of smokers are willing to spend affect the amount of packed smoke with statistically significant, and it can be looked by the p-value of 0.000. And the income of smokers moderates the effect of their spendings on the amount of packs that they consume with p-value less than 5%. So we accept alternative hypothesis.
Gila, macam lanjut ke aku. Udah gitu. Okay, so for this test, we first have to test all the requirements, like what are their variables, and run the cross-step test, and etc. After assumptions are fulfilled, we run the normality test. It turns out the normality test is violated. So we proceed to do the segment test. As you can see,
Violated.
Cut.
violated.
Yeah, violated. Ayo. We're gonna laugh. There's gonna be bloopers.
So for this task, we first have to test all the requirements, like what are the variables from the graph.
Hey, what are we trying to find?
Apa? Oh. You want to know? Does people's feelings. So for this test, we want to know, does people's willingness to spend affect their frequency of smoking? So for this test, we first have to test all of the requirements, like what are the variables, run the cross-step test, and etc. After assumptions are fulfilled, we run the normality test. It turns out the normality
Udah 12.
Hey, don't.
bisa diam nggak?
Ini nengok. I tried my best. Aku udah gini.
Bagus suara kamu.
Ini loh.
Tadi dia hampir ketawa kan? Ya, jujur aja. Ayo. Tiba-tiba paragraf.
Tiba-tiba ini nengok gitu loh kan dia nggak kuat. Ayo.
Penuh air mata. Ayolah, we don't have all day. I want to do.
So for the last question, we want to know, does people's willingness to
JJ. Aku ikut dia.
kayaknya sendiri bisa nggak sih kalian di luar gitu?
Kita udah di dalam. Atau kecuali kita bilang, oke, berat ada tamu.
Oh ya, udah dipanggil.
Masih bisa ngejok suaranya.
Nggak bisa edit loh kalau kalian gini banyak banget lagi dia cut banyak banget. So for the last question, we want to know, does people willingness to spend affect their frequency of what is scroll sih? Jangan
Siapa?
scroll. I read this.
Oh ya.
Kenapa part lu tuh selalu susah gitu?
Lu jangan ketawa, nanti gue terpancing tau. Ayo.
Violated. Nggak main HP. Taruh.
Jangan ketawa ya.
So for the last question, we want to know, does people willingness to spend affect their frequency of smoking? For this test, we first have to test all of the requirements, like what are the variables, run the core step test, and etc. After assumption are fulfilled, we run the normality test. It turns out that the normality test is violated. So we proceed to the
Gatia. Come on. I try my best, Gatia. Nanti lu hapus kata itu. Lu hapus.
kata-kata slime violated.
Turns out the test is not normal. So we
Oh iya.
iya emang di punya kakak itu ada not normal.
I tried
Not
my
normal.
best. I've tried my best.
Is that there is no normality in the test.
Turns that there
No normal.
Did my best.
I did too, but then she come up with her violent.
Okay, so emang di sini?
Iya,
Emang di sini? Masa sih?
No.
udah nggak apa-apa.
So for the last question, we want to know, does people willingness to spend affect their frequency of smoking? For this test, we first have to test all of the requirements, like what are the variables, run the first step test, and etc. After assumption are fulfilled, we run the normality test. It turns out that there's no normality in the test, so we proceed to do the treatment test. As we can see here, based on the hypothesis test summary, there's a statistically significantly different between frequency, income, and spending. After that, we can go to the pairwise comparison test. Based on the pairwise comparison test, we can confirm that the data was statistically significantly different between spending frequency and spending income with p-value 0.000. So we reject the null hypothesis and conclude that there's a difference between the means of the data among smokers are willing to spend in a week, the amount of cigarette packs they consume per week, and the smoker's income per week. And I think that is all from our group. Thank you.
Stop dulu.
Oh,
Nanti semakin banyak.
that's-
Itu pause.